This week, the Board of Education selected Brian Whiston as the next state superintendent. He will step in this summer after current schools chief Mike Flanagan retires. Whiston is currently the superintendent of Dearborn Public Schools. He takes over at a time when education in Michigan is going through a lot of changes, and I think that's an understatement. This was an interesting process, though, Nolan, to watch as it played out in the Capitol. What was your take on it when you saw it all come down?
Well, it confirmed to me that we really don't need an elected school board, and that should be the next ballot measure Michigan faces. Most other states don't have a elected school board that operates independently of the governor. The governor should be responsible and accountable for education policy. This school board has always been controlled by the unions. It's absolutely useless. They had 3 candidates, 2 of them anti-reform, anti-school choice, and of course they picked a guy who hasn't been friendly to school choice. That's completely runs counter to the direction the state's going in and the governor's going in, and he's going to keep stripping their powers away because he's not going to allow this obstructionist board to get in the way. They picked a guy who got in all sorts of trouble or was part of this scandal out in Oakland County several years ago. You all wrote a series about it with the expense account abuse at the Oakland Intermediate School District. I mean, he's a lobbyist, and it was absolutely a choice aimed at sticking a thumb in the eye of the governor,
He's also had a lot of support. Brian Whiston has in Dearborn, where he has been superintendent for the last couple of years and getting test scores up. He's also been very vocal in the fact that the school funding has been cut, for the last couple of years, and he's had to do a lot more with a lot less in Dearborn. And he's also had to deal with a growing population of students where English is not their first language, and he has been fairly successful in that district. Would you give him a little support for that, Stephen?
I don't think he's been a bad superintendent in Dearborn, or at least I haven't seen anything that suggests he has. I think the choice here, though, is wrapped up in this power struggle between the board and the governor, and that's the problem. And the governor's as much at fault at this point as the board is. I mean, just because you don't like what the board does or how it's made up, which is determined by voters, doesn't really give you the right to say, well, I'm going to cut you out of the decision making that the Constitution gives you. I mean, it's an
Obama move.
I know you keep saying that. It's a power grab that I don't think is warranted, and is also not supported by the governor's record. The governor's record on education, on moving failing schools to better status, is not really great. And in fact, in Detroit, it's awful. And so what reason should we have to think that the school board is any less prepared to do that than Governor Snyder is?
They had a good candidate. This Menzel out of Washington County would have been the board made him one of their top 3 candidates. The governor liked him. Would have been a selection that could have started to patch these hard feelings up and move everybody to a better place here. And instead they just they went with an obstruction.
They tried to pick somebody who would antagonize the governor, and I'm not sure that's the best reason to pick somebody. At the same time, this guy is not, he's not the anti-reform, devil that I think people are going to.
Did it surprise you guys that no one from out of state was in the final, that someone from some other part of the country, but in the final 3, though?
No, there should have been. There was the guy from Massachusetts, where they've done amazing things with schools. Highly sought after guy. He passed on an opportunity to take another job because he wanted this one. He made the final 6, and then as soon as the governor made his move with the reform office, out of spite, the board dropped him from the contention. He was probably the best guy in the field. It's not a good way to make decisions.
Okay.
It's not serving the people.
But you're talking about how decisions were made out of spite, and it's political, and it's what the board thinks versus how the governor wants to run things. And I feel that we have this growing storm of education in Michigan, and what needs to happen here in the state in the next 2 years. And you're a parent sitting at home and wondering, what standards my kid is going to be measured upon, and what do we need to do in this state to make sure that our schools and our kids are achieving at higher levels than they have been in the last 10 years. So you're the new superintendent, and you're walking into this. What can people expect now, and what is his role going to be, and what can parents expect from this?
Well, for a while we've had this sort of yin and yang. Mike Flanagan, who's the superintendent now, hadn't agreed with a lot of the things that that Governor Steiner wanted to do, and has tried at various
But they
times.
work fairly well together.
They work better together than I think this pair will, the new superintendent and the governor. And that's the system we have. And I agree with Nolan that maybe it's time to revisit it. Most states don't have an elected statewide school board, but they do try to insulate the Department of Education somehow from politics by limiting the appointive ability of the governor, or using a commission or something like that. Right now, the system that we have sets up these two really powerful, independently elected forces that historically have not done that great in getting along and getting stuff done in Michigan.
It's one of the reasons other states are making progress at much faster rate. There's no secret of what needs to happen in education. You just need to look to places like Massachusetts and Florida and even Tennessee, where results are growing at a much faster rate than in Michigan. When we sit here and fight about control and governance and turf.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've got to get past is, this antagonism about unions. I mean, teachers are part of unions, but they're also the ones who have to put reform into effect. If you beat them up in the reform process, I don't know why you expect that they're going to do these things in a better way.
But they can't, on the other side, they can't sit there and dig their heels in and fight every change.
I don't feel like they're doing
Which
that.
is what the unions have done in this state for a long time. They've seen every change as a threat to their franchise.
But we also have seen, we have more charter schools than anybody else. We have more choice than most other states. I mean, the unions haven't been in the way of any of those things. I think their objection is these things haven't improved the outcomes the way that they were promised.
The positions of the unions in this state have been, hey, just give us more money and stay out of our way. Don't hold us accountable.
They deserve more money.
Ask us. I would agree if they produce results, but we haven't seen the results here. And they've fought every single
But choice
reform.
hasn't produced results, and so who's making money off of that?
They fought more than choice. I mean, they fought the seniority changes, the tenure changes. They fought classroom accountability. They have fought everything that other states are doing and things that are working.